Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hot Tag on a Flashback Friday. We are here this week with part 2 of the Undertaker series, and welcome in Brandi. So, Brandi, how are you this week?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I hope everything is good down your way. Obviously, like I said on our show earlier, I know there's a lot going on, a lot of heavy stuff, and a lot of things that going on in the world. So we are here to try to give you a little bit of escapism for 40 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes. And we are going to talk more about The Undertaker. So, Brandi, start us off and kind of just give a little quick recap for those, because I know we've been gone for a couple weeks. And then we will go into what we're going to get into this week.
I just want to say thank you to people who've responded in the Facebook group. You guys have had some amazing comments and wonderful questions. So you guys are awesome. Also, Joe, I thought about this question earlier. If The Undertaker and Luna Vachon had a baby, what do you think they'd name it?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I know I'm thinking of horror characters, but I can't even come up with one.
Earlier.
Luna was something else. She was a scary woman, without a doubt. And then the makeup and stuff like that. But yeah, she was a scary character.
I think they'd probably give birth to Michael Myers.
Yes, I certainly, yeah, absolutely could be. Absolutely could be. That's great.
Okay, guys. So last time we had gotten to the point where we were beginning to talk about the Hell in the Cell. Of course, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were in the very first Hell in the Cell. And that's when we hear probably Vince McMahon's most famous words, that's gotta be Kane.
Yes.
And yes. And they had never done a Hell in a Cell concept like that but before, where you had the cage actually going outside of the ring and it had a closed top. And so it's pretty revolutionary. And you had never seen a bump like the one that Shawn Michaels took off of the side of the cage, up until that point. And I think it was a great match. But you have a year later Mick Foley and The Undertaker, of course, having a Hell in a Cell at King of the Ring 98.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the match we hear most about when you talk about Foley versus Taker. And, just the infamy of the match has lived as long as it has, I think speaks to the athleticism and the storytelling and the teamwork of both of those guys.
Yeah, it was, I agree. There was a lot of anticipation there, and just, I agree with you.
Is there anything from that match or the commentary or anything that sticks out to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to remember a little bit now. Man, I'm getting old. The commentating in the match, I do remember. I remember, obviously it's been shown quite often. So, I mean, you saw a lot of stuff, but I mean, it was just, it was just an incredible match. Absolutely incredible match. What about you, Jeff?
We're talking about the Hell in the Cell.
The Hell in a Cell.
The Hell in the
98.
Cell.
I just you get your JR, good God Almighty, he's broken in half. You get the Jerry Lawler. Yep, that's it. He's dead.
I know. Jerry's
Yes.
so matter of fact.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, I mean, there's so many, there's so many iconic parts, and you know, JR saying somebody stop the match, and
Yes.
you know that it's yeah. When I love the beginning of it when they both start when he starts climbing up to the top of the cage, and then you get Undertaker doing the same, and yeah, I mean it's such an iconic match
Yes.
because there are so many iconic moments within that one match. I mean, you think about Foley, you think about the two of them actually climbing up and getting on top of the cage, and
And
not just. Go ahead, Brandi. Go ahead.
no, I'm saying, I was going to say, you know who we have to thank for that, don't you?
Who's that?
Terry Funk.
Of course.
He and Mick were going back and watching the Shawn Taker match, and Mick was like, "I can't beat it. There's nothing I can do. What do I do?" And Terry says, "Cactus, you got to start at the top of the cage." You know Terry's voice.
Yeah.
And so Mick's like, "I don't know if I can do that." Because he's like, Shawn's this weight and I'm a lot heavier than he is. And, how are we going to do it? And so he starts thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And he said, Terry, I think I can do it, but I'm going to have to come off the top of the cage. And Terry's like, well, Jack, if you want to die, And so,
I don't know. Has that ever been done before? I mean, I can't really remember. I can't recall. I remember flying off the cage into a ring. Like I said, I remember Snuka's moment when he did the Superfly off the top of the cage. But has that ever been done before that?
well, the first Hell in a Cell was with Shawn and Taker.
Right.
And Shawn only came off halfway through the side of the cage.
Yep.
So this was the second Hell in a Cell. And so, yes, this would have been the first time.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I thought as much.
And even then, they didn't have the hand holds and the foot holds like you see today.
Right.
That wasn't there. They were literally just climbing up the fencing.
Yep.
And that, from what I understand, that match kind of sparked that whole change of putting the hand and foot holes in the cage so they could get up there a little bit easier.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not easy. I don't know if I mean, when obviously I was much younger, and I'm sure Jeff and Brandi, you may have been there too. When you're kids, you climbing fences is a thing.
Yeah.
So, and that is not easy. Those little chain links are not forgiving at all. And I'm sure, Jeff, you might be able to touch on this a little bit more with your wrestling career, because you try to grab those things and then try to hoist yourself up with those little link chains. It's almost like they're digging right through to your bone.
Yeah. I've only done one cage match.
Sweet.
And number one, I don't really like heights, so so that's one. But we did do a spot where I got like halfway up, and I just like let go and did like a crossbody to two guys on the floor. So that's my extent of doing anything with a cage, but it was not easy, I can tell you that, because we did not, unlike WWE, we did not have a big budget, so we couldn't really do anything with cages and make it easy. So it was it's difficult, very difficult.
Dude, I want to hear that. Just saying.
You want to hear it? You want to hear?
Well, I can't see the match. Yeah, I want to hear it.
Okay, I mean it was a tag team match for the titles. We were the champions, and we had a match against these guys, and we had been building up the feud for probably 2 solid months, and finally it could, the only way they could contain us, and this is how it was promoted, the only way you can contain the feud was to put us in a cage and let us fight it out.
That is awesome.
So, we get down to the ring and we go in and, we go in, they're coming out with their entrance. I go out because they're like standing halfway up the ramp, and I go out and I'm starting to, try and get them down there and hurl insults at them and everything. And they come down and we start fighting, and for whatever reason, we worked it out in the back where they said, "Hey, we know you're the biggest guy in the match, but it'd be really, really cool if you came off of the cage before we even get into the ring." And I'm like, all right, cool. So I climb up like halfway, and I'm deathly afraid. You could probably tell. I'm sure the people in the crowd could tell for sure, because the sweat that was pouring off of my face at that point was just, it told the story. But yeah, I climb halfway up and I look back at them, and then I just like push myself off of the cage, twist my body, and land, hit like a crossbody against the two of them. My partner, who was also my trainer, comes out, and we drag them both into the ring, and we put on a 45-minute match where we just beat the absolute crap out of each other with everything that we could find. This is one of the infamous thumbtack spots that I did in my career, and we ended up retaining the belts. But it was a 45-minute match, and we had people glued the entire time because we were just one-upping everything that we were doing. We did have a spot where this cage didn't have a top to it, so we couldn't do anything up top. But we did have a spot where one of their guys climbs up to the top from the inside of the ring. He's standing up there. He jumps off, and I catch him and do like a modified Falcon era, where I turn, I have them turned and kind of do that thing, and that was a pretty cool spot. It hurt like crap because when I caught him, he had enough force behind him where it almost knocked the breath out of me. But no, it was a fun match. 45 minutes, like I said, and we had the crowd hooked.
That's awesome.
Well, there you
Jeff,
go.
Everybody, a lost member of the Dudleys.
We did have tables in that match as well. So yeah, you could say we were trying to emulate the Dudleys and the Hardys.
That's great.
That's awesome. Awesome.
That made my day. That was fantastic.
Well, there you go. See that? We took a little bit of a side thing there, but there you go.
It's okay.
Jeff's experience with a cage. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. I love it.
First
okay, so Mick goes to Taker, and this is probably a couple weeks out from the match, and he's like, "This is what I want to do." Taker had an injured foot at the time.
Yep.
Mick knew. He's like, "I'm not Shawn Michaels," So he goes to Taker, and this is what I want to do. And Taker's not convinced. Goes back to him again, closer to time. Taker's still not convinced. Finally, Mick says, "Look, this is what we have to do to beat your and Shawn's match." And Taker goes, "Okay." And so Mick starts out top of the cage. Taker joins him up there. And Taker has a really legitimately messed up foot. So from the get-go, you have to really give a lot of credit to these guys. They knew they're doing a dangerous match. Taker's foot is hurt. Mick says he's not the most athletic wrestler there ever was, but he's a legit tough guy. And so the first bump off the top of the cage was planned. Mick's goal was to
Uh-oh.
Okay, she hits the announcer's table. Why? Why it's always the Spanish announce table? I don't know. But they're running, trying to get out of the way. And Mick said he very easily could have hit the guardrail, and then it would have been over. And so then they get back into the match, and they're fighting on top, and they were not supposed to go through the top of the cage. Apparently there were weak spots from where they had been up earlier, and so when Taker goes to pick Mick up, it was a regular choke slam, right? Not the triangle choke. Do you guys remember?
I think it was a regular. Yeah, regular.
I think so.
So Undertaker goes to choke him on top of the cage, and he goes right through, and that's when you hear, "Oh my God, he's broken in half," And
famous line. Yep.
Absolutely. And I wish I could see the part. They've talked about it so many times of the camera shot. Mick actually has his tooth coming through his nose.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And he busted his lip open. The bottom of the lip. He has a hole in his lip, and he can stick his tongue through. And this is not the first time that's happened to Mick. So he's had practice at trying to see if he can stick his tongue through a hole in his mouth. And so, Taker's doing everything he can to give him time, for the refs and everybody to make sure he's okay. And they put him onto a stretcher. And I'm sure everybody there, who knew what was going on with what was supposed to happen in the match thought, oh my God, he's in serious trouble. He gets off the stretcher, goes back into the ring, starts feuding with Taker again. Thank God at one point Terry Funk comes down. He has a little altercation with Taker just to give Mick a little bit more time. And later on, Mick asks Taker, "What did you think when I fell through the cage?" And he says, "Mick, I thought you were dead."
Yep. Yeah. I was just reading that. They Funk thought he was too. And Undertaker actually stayed in character, even though he said that. And I think Terry Funk was quoted saying something like his eyes weren't rolled in the back of his head, but they said it was like staring into a fish. So yeah, I mean, how crazy is that? And I think I read too that it was planned, like they loosened the brackets on the roof, so they kind of planned it a little bit, but it was never planned to do what it did. And I think I also read something, I think maybe in Mick's book, and this is going back to when I read his book that he came out with, but I think if I remember right, he was saying something that he didn't take that choke slam the right way, and if he did, he could have died.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yes, he calls it the goozle, and he said if he hadn't taken it how he did, if it was correct, he would have died.
Wow.
Yes, he would have.
He would have died. They had planned in advance to do a thumbtack spot. They actually have the wherewithal to do that. I believe Taker does a tombstone. The match is finally over, and they stretcher, they go to stretcher Mick back out, and I believe Mike Chioda was the referee. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. Yep.
Yes, I'm pretty sure Mike Chioda was the referee. And Mick says, "Have I been on the stretcher once already tonight?" Mike goes, "Yes, Mick, you have." And he says, "I want you guys to help carry me out. I don't want to do a second stretcher job, And so Mike Chioda and Terry Funk carry him out. And how he was able to even walk after that, I have no idea. And I also read in information about this match, and also from Mick's book, that Vince McMahon was legitimately concerned.
Yes.
And they said often you don't see him show that side, but he was very frightened.
Well,
And
if two people thought, I mean, my goodness, if two people thought that he could have been dead, then I can certainly understand that. But yeah, I mean, it's insane. Like the fact that, and I think, again, remember reading his book, and it's hard for me to remember because it's been so long. But I think he said he didn't remember much of it.
no.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, obviously, if he was in that kind of shape, then yeah, he, you don't really remember much of it at all. Then there was a lot going on there.
And he, in the back, he asked somebody, I don't remember if it was one of the trainers or one of the doctors, but he said, no, I'm sorry, it's Vince McMahon. He says, I'm sorry I didn't do the thumbtacks. And this is while he's got, hundreds of thumbtacks in his body. And somebody says, Mick, you did it. And he's like, oh, okay. So he ends up, in the hospital that night and getting fixed up. And the crazy part for me is somebody says, Mick, you need to call your wife. And I think he also wrote, there that he doesn't remember that conversation. So, just the athleticism and the wherewithal of Undertaker and Mankind to handle what they went through and do everything that they did. I don't know if the fans can fully appreciate it.
Yeah, that it's for sure. I mean, Mick has always been known as a guy that's going to sacrifice his body. I mean, and when he showed videos of him when he was younger, jumping off rooftops and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you knew that was a thing. Taker, you never really saw him do that crazy. I mean, he of course he had moves. He would fly, he'd jump over the ring and the ring ropes outside and stuff like that. So the wherewithal of it was there for both of them, but to this degree, I don't think anyone expected it. I can remember, like I said, I remember watching it, of course, and I remember moments of it, but I don't remember it like I used to. I'm going to have to go back and watch it again. But I just remember like being, when he went through that cage, it took my breath away. Like yes. I absolutely just could not believe that happened. And then and I honestly didn't know until after the thing about his lip and the tooth being there. I remember seeing that and thinking, what is that? Like, right. Is that like a piece of, like, I didn't know. And then I found out about it now, afterwards. So it's insane. And stuff like that will never be something that'll be duplicated again.
No, especially, the thing that's really unforgettable to me is the sound of him crashing through that cage and hitting the mat. You will not hear a thud like that again. I mean, it's just sickening. Yep. This was kind of funny to me. I guess this is a little behind the scenes magic, but the teeth that he knocked out, they put in a glass of milk. And that was able to keep the tooth, or maybe it was multiple teeth, okay until he could get to the hospital and they could put the teeth back in.
Wow. I've heard of bones and stuff being that. I never knew you could do that. Well, there you go.
Hey, milk, it does a body good, apparently.
Yeah, apparently so. Drink that calcium. There you go.
But I just thought that was one of the little side notes that just made me go, but I just, I think about this match, and I know we're focusing on Taker here, but I think about this match, and then I think about Mick's 99 match with The Rock, where he takes the 19 chair shots to the head. I'm like, which one is more brutal?
Yeah. Yep. The man certainly lived up to his hardcore name.
Absolutely.
There's no question. I mean, and you could tell, like you were saying, he got a lot of that from Terry Funk.
Yes.
A lot of influence from him, because that man too, when I saw some of the scars, I saw him in an interview, and when I saw some of the scars on his body, on his forehead and on his arms and stuff like that, it's like, good Lord, he looked like he went through a war.
Yes.
And and like I said, it's just, it's a piece of history, and obviously, you know, Undertaker's history is going to be looked on as being, you know, so rich in his wrestling career from being around for so long and been involved in so many matches that it's hard to pick one, but this match is absolutely iconic.
You know, I think as far as Undertaker's career goes, I think that and there's this one match where he is with Kane and Undertaker actually gets caught on fire. And it was an accident. It was a complete accident. And, you know, you just think, you don't realize how they sacrificed their bodies. I mean, Undertaker has been in a coffin match and the coffin accidentally caught on fire. You know, Kane, they had an Inferno match and Kane caught on fire. It's like, you know, these guys put their bodies and their souls on the line for everybody that loves this business. And, you know, I think you're not going to see that in today's, you know, talent pool.
Not only that, but it's just that I think they're at the point too where they just aren't going to risk it. I mean, you have, you know, it's such a different time now. And again, Jeff, you'll have to correct me because you might know more about this, but the setup for that kind of a match, like an Inferno thing where you have the flames there, I'm thinking it's almost like one of those little, in fact, it's fine. My wife just bought one of those little enclosed gas jets that you can put out, you know, on your porch or your backyard and hook it up to a propane tank. I'm guessing that's what that is, but I can totally understand how easy it would be for you to get burned on that.
Yeah. I think that's what they use with that one. And it had like the motion thing whenever you hit the mat, the flames would come up.
Yep.
I thought it was really funny, the story that Kane told about how little training they got when it came to, you know, how to take these things and what they were going to do when he got set on fire there, how, you know, what to do in that situation. So yeah, that was definitely an interesting thing there. But when you bring in elements like that, you can have everything worked out from a spot perspective as wrestlers, but you don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, because anything could happen once you get into the ring with something like that. You have no control over it.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, look, anything can happen, like you said. I mean, it's an element. You're playing with an element. You're literally, you know, quote unquote, you're playing with fire.
Right.
So
exactly right.
You don't know what is gonna. Yeah. You don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, something can go wrong. A wind can whip up somewhere. So, but back to your point, Brandi, it's like, it's not going to be something like I said. I don't think you're ever going to see anything like that again, because nowadays, especially now, we have the cinematic stuff going on now too. They have ways where they can protect these guys better, and I think the athletes today themselves would never probably agree to it. I honestly think, and that's no knock on them. Look, Mick was Mick, and Taker, and this is why, you know, we're talking about him. And you see this on his on that show they have on now, The Last Ride. You know, he mentions about how he's never satisfied. He can come through a match and he's never satisfied with it, and you know. So he always wants to try and improve and be better than the last one. So, you know, you think to yourself, well, I just had the best match I could ever have. How can I improve on that? So I just think it's two individuals that you're never going to see anything like them again. You might see people out there similar or kind of using gimmicks and stuff, but I don't think you'll ever see them take chances like they did back then to entertain. And again, it all goes back to that, doesn't it? I mean, these guys are putting on a show, and the fact that, my goodness, Mick Foley almost died doing this, that's insane to me.
Yeah. And, you know, everybody talks about, well, who's Undertaker's last match going to be with? And I really, really wish it could be Mick. I know his body won't allow him to do that now. But if you're going with nostalgia, if you're going with the depth of the character that The Undertaker is, I don't think you could have a last match without Mick and Kane in some capacity. If he chooses to pass the torch to Bray, which I would love, or to even Aleister Black, you know, I just really don't think you get that last match without some of the history and some of the depth that he has had with Mick and with Kane.
Somebody mentioned, and I don't remember where I read this, but somebody mentioned now that you've got the cinematic stuff, it makes it a little bit easier for them to incorporate things like that. But somebody had mentioned, what if it were something along the lines of a match similar to the Funhouse match with Bray, where now it doesn't necessarily have to be with him, but if it was somewhere along those lines where he kind of relives things from his past, and that's when you can bring in a Kane or you can bring in Mick Foley, and they would not necessarily have to be physical. They wouldn't have to wrestle. They could just end up appearing there somehow, no matter, you know, whoever he would happen to be wrestling. But yeah, I mean, that's what's cool about this. There's so much stuff that they can do, and yeah, I mean, what a way to go. People would be on their seats applauding if that something like that happened.
Absolutely. And, you know, people talk about dream matches and they want to see Taker with Sting. I was thinking about, you know, who I would enjoy Taker against from the past. And I thought, can you imagine a Taker-Kevin Sullivan match?
Yeah. Yep.
The mind games.
Yeah. Absolutely. The storytelling.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely cool.
Yeah, that definitely. There's so many matchups that you can make, and you know, people tend to go toward the newer guys, as opposed to the guys who've been around. But yeah, absolutely insane. The things you can do for sure. There is a lot more to touch on with this. Obviously, we still have all the rest of Undertaker's career to go.
The streak.
So, yes. Yep. We have, give us a little preview, Brandi, and then we will we'll go on to have you promote a book, and then we will wrap it for this week, and then but preview the next section of the Undertaker for next week.
I think we're going to get into the ministry some. I have some love-hate issues with that period of the Undertaker's time. I think we're going to maybe, mention the American Badass period, but we're going to move forward to the Undertaker character himself. Hopefully cover his feud with Randy Orton, which I absolutely loved, and his matches with Triple H, because I think there's an argument to be made that some of his matches with Triple H may be just as good as some of his matches with Kane. And then, of course, Shawn Michaels chooses The Undertaker to retire him. People are constantly debating about which match was better, the retirement match or the one they had a year or two before. And then, of course, you start to see Taker less and less until WrestleMania season, and you talk about this streak. And I think there's a lot to be said with his feud with CM Punk. If I had a wish, I would love to see more between Punk and Taker. And then, of course, you get to where the decision to end the streak is made, and I think we can debate that all day long.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, the match with Roman and this year's match. There's just so many iconic moments.
Yeah.
And the will of this man to continue to do this for the love of wrestling itself and for the love of his fans, I think he deserves a standing ovation every time he comes out, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. If you guys aren't watching The Last Ride, the documentary, you really should. I know, and how can you like WWE and not be a fan of Undertaker in any way, shape, or form? look, yeah, it's a look behind a character you never knew about, you never heard much about, and it's amazing to see. And like I said, it was just watching it and seeing the will of this man, just not being satisfied. Like you had mentioned, the Roman match we'll get into, but he just knew that he couldn't, he wasn't able to perform that the submission hold, and he knew he messed up and he felt horrible about it. So, and listen, he could have walked away and no one would have thought any less. But in his own mind, and that's probably why, so many people are saying the guy's never going to fully retire, until he just can't do it anymore. Because, he goes out and gets a hip replacement and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you haven't watched it, make sure that you do, because it's really, really excellent.
Do you guys have a favorite so far? Mine so far is number 3.
Go ahead, Jeff.
It's a toss-up between 2 and 3.
Cool.
I thought 2 was phenomenal.
Yeah, I did too. Yep, I did too.
That's not taking away anything from 1 or 3, but I just thought that one was phenomenal.
Yep, I agree. I think just, again, just seeing that, the disappointment, the fact that they kept going back to when he was watching that match on TV,
right.
And he just couldn't take it. He couldn't watch. And I also love the backstage stuff when you just see him walk back there. It's like a living legend walking through the locker room.
Yes.
Just everybody comes up to him, and the younger guys, and he's high-fiving guys like the Miz, and he's talking to other people, and he's joking around with people. It's like, it must be, how can you compare it? I mean, to walking past a Ric Flair or an Andre the Giant back in the day, I mean, he's a legend of the business. And
absolutely.
And you could definitely see it. You could see it in the young guys' faces when he's there and he's talking to them, and how Roman talked about how he came over and sat with him and his wife, I think, and they were talking.
Yes.
So obviously, he's a good dude. And they were very well respected, even by Vince. And how you mentioned earlier, Vince isn't one to do that. He's not one to, and the fact, it took the one episode where he went to the hospital and then Vince went with him and left the pay-per-view. That's saying something too.
Absolutely.
Because it's just not something you would know Vince to do. So, but yeah. It's unbelievable career, absolutely unbelievable. So we will get to part 3. We will do that for you guys next week. We wanted to make this one mostly all about that match with Mick, because the match is just bigger than life, and one of the most remembered matches for both of those superstars that will go down in history, as one of the most brutal, probably matches, and absolutely crazy. You can't talk history, WWE, without mentioning that match. So Brandi, give us before we go, give us a book. I know you enjoy recommending those books, so let us know what you've got.
I have to say, if you have not seen Hell in a Cell from 1998, King of the Ring, stop what you are doing and go watch it. Go watch it, guys. And don't worry, next week I will bring up some Wrestlers Court info, because I know some of you out there might be a little curious. Send in your questions, send in your comments. I have some exciting book news.
Awesome.
Okay, so you guys know that I've been talking about, I can't get this on audio. Well, with the couple latest updates to the iPhone, it allows me to use the Kindle app now. And I can't use it on all books, but I have been able to get some wrestling books.
There you go. Awesome.
My recommendation for this week, especially considering the last episode of the Dark Side of the Ring.
Yep.
I did get to read Martha Hart's book, and
cool.
it it described a love story. It described a wonderful man, a wonderful wrestling legacy, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I know there's a lot out there that's said about Martha Hart, but I don't think you can, you know, really truly understand what somebody's going through until you've been in their shoes. But you get a really good look about what she went through and what her children went through. And I think she should be commended for being able to go through all of that again on paper.
Absolutely. Definitely hard to bring something like that back up. Sure. Absolutely.
And it was fantastic. So if you want a great read, if you want something well written and a really compelling story, go check out Martha's book. I can't put it over enough.
Awesome. There you go. Well, listen, we thank you guys for tuning in as always. Thank you to Brandi for being on the show again and for doing her hot tag for us. And I know the guys I've already kind of teased it with them. I said, you know, because we've had people asking about it. So when we get done with the Undertaker, we're going to move on to Waylon Mercy, because I know we got you know, a community full of Bray fans, and they want to learn a little bit more about this character. So we're gonna move on to that after our next part of the Undertaker, which is next week. So awesome. Again,
I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be cool, because I think a lot of people don't really know the character very much. They know he kind of inspired Bray a little bit, but not as much as they would probably want to know about the characters. So absolutely. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us again. And listen, we will talk to you again very soon. Thanks to Jeff and of course Brandi, and we will all see you next Friday.